was a veteran of the KGB, born into a family that was deeply involved with the Russian intelligence service. He was also a British spy. Gordievsky's father had worked for the KGB all his life, even wearing his uniform on the weekend. Oleg grew up in a designated apartment block for officers and spy families. His training as a KGB officer started at the age of 23 in 1962 at the KGB's Red Banner Elite Training Academy. In late 1965, he was deployed to Copenhagen with his wife, Yelena, and ran Soviet spies working in civilian jobs under deep cover. The Danish security service knew he was a KGB agent posing as a diplomat. They alerted MI6. It was during Gordievsky's time in Copenhagen that he became deeply disenchanted and alienated from Soviet Russia. He was flagged as a person of interest by MI6 after the defection of a friend of his, Stanislas Kaplan. The two had met at the Moscow Institute of International Relations before Oleg joined the KGB. Kaplan described Gordievsky as having clear signs of political disillusionment. MI6 recruited him and created an emergency escape plan codenamed Pimlico. It was their hope that it would never have to be activated. Gordievsky returned to Russia for 3 years before he was sent to London, where he would eventually rise to become head of the KGB station. Throughout the time that he was in London, the emergency exfiltration plan Pimlico remained in place in case he was sent back to Moscow. Before leaving Moscow for London, he went through the KGB archives to see what information he could find that might be of interest to MI6. One of the files he found was labelled Boot. Boot, he discovered, was Michael Foot. By 1982, the leader of the Labour Party and potentially the next Prime Minister of Great Britain if he won the election. The files showed that in the 1960s, as a young MP and up until the Prague Spring, Michael Foot had met regularly with KGB officers in London and had been paid a considerable amount of money. Gordievsky passed the information to MI6. This extremely volatile lump of political explosive was not passed on to the sitting Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher. By 1985, Oleg Gordievsky was in command of the KGB station in London and at the peak of his career as a double agent. Then he was called back to Moscow, where Operation Pimlico, the emergency escape plan, remained in place.